So, Ignition Code has made its long-awaited return to the loot pool of Destiny 2. This lightweight frame grenade launcher back in the season of Splicer when it was introduced was one of the most sought out grenade launchers in the game, but that was 3 years ago. So what's new here? What is the God Roll? And most importantly, is it worth the grind? Those are the questions we will be addressing in this video. But before we do that, just want to get a few things out the way. If you guys enjoy the content, be sure to drop this video a like, helps with the video a ton. And of course, for more content from me, please consider hitting that subscribe button and bell to be notified when I do drop more content. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about Ignition Code. To understand what is different here, let's pull up the old perk pool for this weapon, and the main changes to the perk pool will be seen in column 3 and column 4. As we pull up the new perk pool we have in column 4, Danger Zone is being replaced by Reverberation, Thresh being replaced by Strategist, One for All being replaced by High Ground, and Demolitionist being replaced by Harmony. Now in column 3, we have Field Prep being replaced by Unrelenting, Surplus being replaced by Steady Hands, Quick Draw being replaced by Permeability, thus leaving what you see here on screen as all the perk combinations you can get for this grenade launcher. Now we'll be reading this from right to left and labeling it so you guys can follow. Now all the way to the right is a brand new origin trait, Splicer Surge. Reloading this weapon after dealing damage grants the weapon a stacking reload speed and handling bonus until stowed. This can get up to max stacks of plus 45 to your handling and plus 45 to your reload speed. Again, these are nice juicy buffs. In my opinion, is it perfect for this type of archetype? I don't know. But again, when something like Rapid Hits leaves the sandbox for our seasonal artifact, something like this could mean something, but as you'll see in the God Roll, maybe not the most useful origin trait specifically for this weapon. Now over in column 4, we have Reverberation, Strategist, Frenzy, Vorpal Weapon, High Ground, and Harmony. In column 3, we have Slide Shot, Ambitious Assassin, Unrelenting, Lead from Gold, Steady Hands, and Permeability. And for our magazines, we have Disorienting Grenades, Proximity Grenades, Spike Grenades, High Velocity Rounds, and Implosion Rounds. So with that out the way, let's talk about the God Roll, or in this case, God Rolls. There is 2 here. And honestly, they're both incredibly good, but in their own different ways, depending on what you may be looking for. So God Roll number 1 will have Quick Launch, Spike Grenades, Slide Shot, and Vorpal Weapon. And God Roll number 2 will have Quick Launch, Spike Grenade, Slide Shot. Again, its first 3 are similar to God Roll number 1, except Vorpal Weapon will be switched with High Ground. Now, before we get into the details of the differences and why you may want one over the other, I just want to say that Disorienting Rounds would have made the cut. However, I just don't feel like Disorienting Rounds is something worth the chase anymore. That's just a personal preference. There is a lot of great AoE control things that you don't really need to disorient someone. I rather take the damage here of a lightweight frame grenade launcher rather than just using it as disorienting my enemies. But again, that's just a personal preference. Nothing too crazy. If you guys disagree, that's perfectly fine. But that's just how I feel on Disorienting Rounds at the moment for grenade launchers. So with God Roll number 1, this will be the most basic, easy to use in all content roles for this grenade launcher. Vorpal Weapon has a 15% flat damage boost to when you face champions, bosses, mini bosses, and vehicles. So in the case of taking this into Nightfalls and stuff like that, there is value here. It is flat, it is great, and with Slideways, you can just kind of spam shoot a boss, especially with something like Concussive Reload in the game at the moment. This is very fun, very cracked out. Now, funny enough, if you are like me and grinding for this weapon back in Season of Splicer, there's a good chance you also have this God Roll because this is completely possible back in the Season of Splicer, and this was actually the God Roll I wanted and got. The obvious exclusion will be the origin trait not being present, but like I said, the origin trait isn't too necessary for this specific weapon given Slideways being a thing as well as Rapid Hits also being a thing. Now, if you want an updated version of this God Roll that you could potentially get more juice out of, then switching Vorpal Weapon to High Ground is a powerful God Roll. The main reason you would probably want this is for the higher damage potential, and for something like a Master or Nightfall content, you can be at a distance. Maybe in a Master Raid, you can't really be at a distance, but this has Overload mods, this has Concussive Reload, and High Ground, increasing that damage possibility. There's a lot of good stuff here, but let's talk about High Ground and how it reads to kind of understand. So Final Blows with this weapon grants stacks of bonus damage. Attacking targets from higher ground immediately grants the maximum number of stacks. Also, this is not specific towards bosses, mini bosses, and champions. This is universal based on the weapon damage increase. And of course, if you get a max kill, you'll have a max stacks, which will give you a 25% damage boost for 7 seconds. Again, it's not the flat 15% buff Vorpal is for special weapons, it's a higher overall number, and you don't have the limitations of the verbiage that qualifies for getting that flat buff you see in Vorpal. It's kind of like the same thing I say in the comparison of Synthoceps and Worm God for the Titan armor exotics when it comes to increasing your melee damage. If you want the flat rate, go for Vorpal. If you want a more universal, flexible rate, then Worm God, or in this case High Ground, will be a great option for you guys. Now, on to the question of, is it worth it? Well, that depends on your end of it. I personally already have an ignition code from Splicer that is awesome and pretty much identical to God Roll number 1. So I personally don't think that extra 10% flexibility is worth the grind when I already have God Roll number 1. I'm not going to say I'm not going to be looking for it if I do get an ignition code to drop, but I'm not chasing it like I would be in this case. But if you guys, for whatever reason, weren't around to get this weapon back then maybe I think this has some value, but in reality, compared to other grenade launchers in these slots, something like Lost Signal and Liturgy, those you can make the case have overall better sandbox value, so it is really up to you. Legendary lightweight frame GLs are kind of a thing of the past, unfortunately, so in general, if anything I said here got you saying I need to grind for it, then go ahead, but if I didn't convince you, then well, pick another weapon. I think there are a good amount in the arsenal that have better value in the current sandbox. But in general, that's pretty much all I have to say on this ignition code video for PvE. Yeah, was a big fan of this weapon back in the day, was kind of hoping for a little bit more juice in a refresh. Don't really know if that's there. Again, high ground, more flexibility. That does possibly itch my desire to get a God Roll with that, but at the same time, I don't really know how much time I want to invest in that when, in my opinion, there, again, like I said, there are much better weapons in the arsenal currently to chase and look for. But again, my personal take, leave your thoughts down below. If you guys enjoyed the video and want to give it a nice little support, little juice, hit that like button, helps out the video a ton. And of course, like I said before, if you want more content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell to be notified when I do drop more content. With that being said, it's all I gotta say in this one. ShadowNinja here, and I'm out.